Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons commentary. What are the basic elements of Dungeons & Dragons commentary? And specifically, I've split it into three elements: news, advice. Those aren't new, you've heard about those before. But today we're going to talk about the third element: passion. Passion for Dungeons & Dragons. And this is all coming from a user comment from the Gibson, and he said something really fascinating that I wanted to talk about, right? So, all right, so D&D commentary, it is a growing discipline, right? Like it's a major thing. Like there's no less than half a dozen people, maybe 24 people trying to make this their full-time job. I am not one of them. I'll tell you that right now. I'm tell you right now, I love Dungeons and Dragons, and it is not attractive to me to make it my job, because I've seen people go down that road, and it is a hard road, right? If you think I'm wrong, I want you to go over to WebDM and see what happened to Pruitt. It is not easy, okay? So I enjoy doing this, but I think as hard as it is, I think it'd be even harder if you tried to make this your full-time living. And I think people have a very hard time doing it, right? But so let's just take, and there's easily 1,000 D&D commentators on YouTube, okay? And only, I would say, 1% are professional. 99% are amateur, which I have no problem with that, right? And I'll tell you right now, I definitely think there are amateurs who are better than some of the pros, no question, right? So, but there's some helpful pros. Like Nerd Immersion, I think, is a fantastic. Well, actually, you know what? He ain't even pro yet. Like, I'm sorry. I guess he's literally amateur. I've seen that he's making money on it, but it ain't his main gig. It's a whole thing, right? But it is definitely a body of knowledge. It is a discipline that is growing, okay? So the obvious are news and advice, right? So news, okay? The news of Dungeons & Dragons, it's a big thing. It's becoming bigger by the day, right? Now, I cover the news I like to cover, right? And I do some news coverage. And then there's advice. I'm going to tell you how to D&D right? Or other people, I'm going to tell you how to D&D, and it doesn't matter what I say because you can do whatever you want. I don't know why I'm talking, right? There's a whole bunch of people who say that. I'm not sure why, but it's definitely a thing, right? And whatever. And then last, the Gibson said something really fascinating. I want to talk about what he said. He put a great comment below. He said, you know what? I don't come to D&D he said, I don't come to tabletop role-playing game commentators for advice. In fact, I've never used any of their advice. I come for their passion for the hobby, right? Okay. Now, I don't cover, I really don't cover other tabletop role-playing games here. I cover the tabletop role-playing game. I cover Dungeons and Dragons, right? So, and I don't need to go outside of D&D because there's 1,000 D&D commentators. 1,000, no joke. A ton, right? So basically, you got this, Dungeons & Dragons commentary going on, and I think it splits into, so news and advice was obvious. I never thought about somebody coming to D&D commentators for their passion for Dungeons & Dragons. It's really fascinating, right? So one, I do think there are other people like the Gibson. So if that's the case and people are coming, so one, what percentage are coming for that, right? So first of all, I'll tell you right now, I know for a fact, Nerd Immersion's already proven it, right? There is definitely a contingency who are coming for D&D news. Nerd Immersion is getting close to 100,000 subs, and that's his main jam. He covers D&D if it happens in D&D, he covers it, right? D&D candy, D&D toys at Target. New CEO, new books. If it's D&D news, he covers it. Period. End of sentence. And actually, frankly, nobody on the internet does it better, right? Advice. Boy, oh boy, is there lots of people giving advice on how to play Dungeons and Dragons. That is an absolute thing, okay? So there is definitely a contingency who are showing up for that, right? And I will say right now, I show up for that. I absolutely go to Professor Dungeon Master has great advice on how to play Dungeons and Dragons. Sly Flourish has fantastic advice on how to play Dungeons and Dragons. Ginny D, I think she has really good. I don't think she has good advice on how to play Dungeons and Dragons. I think she's very helpful to know what some people are looking for from Dungeons and Dragons. So she has a really unique voice. Okay, that's another thing. Maybe that's the other thing is when you talk about Dungeons and Dragons, you talk about Dungeons and Dragons in a way that no one else does, right? Jenny D has a unique voice. No one covers Dungeons and Dragons like her, right? You get content on her channel that doesn't sound like anybody else, right? And so that's, so however, I'll tell you right now, I think it's very, very hard to make your bones like that in uniqueness, right? In fact, I wouldn't even include, it's such a small amount of creators, I wouldn't even touch it as an actual source, right? So that's kind of interesting. The last is this idea of passion, right? So you are giving your passion for Dungeons and Dragons, and then people coming to your channel would be vibing off your passion. So I'll give the breakdown. I think a quarter of, you know what? I would say 40% of everybody is coming for news. Then I would say 50% are coming for advice. But I will admit, I think they are highly underserved. And the vast majority of advice that is given on the internet for Dungeons and Dragons falls into a few buckets. One, absolutely ridiculously overplayed the same advice over and over and over again. Session 0, talk to your players. And it's a game, have fun. If those words were never spoken again, there's so much of it on the internet, it wouldn't even matter. You'd be fine, right? It's horrendous, right? Like how much repeat there is, right? And then there's bad advice, and then there's some good advice, right? And I would say it's probably like 70% repeat, 20% good. No. I'd say it's 50% repeat, 40% bad, and 10% good advice, which is rough, right? So overall, I think the breakdown is going to be 40% are coming for 40% come for news, 50% come for advice, and I do think we should recognize 10% are coming for passion for the hobby, for your passion for Dungeons and Dragons. Now, why would people do this? Well, I think all of us remember pep rallies. It's a pep rally, right? Like you run every week. You want to see what people who are excited. You want to talk about, it's just like sports. Like sports radio was a thing for decades, right? And people would just blah, blah, blah about sports, right? We want to talk and we want to hear people who are excited about what we're excited about, talk in an excited way about the thing we're excited about. I totally get that. But I actually really am, I like putting things in categories, right? So news, advice, passion. I think it's definitely 10% of the market, right? And I think we as commentators need to realize that, right? Because sometimes the world can get us down and that just kind of penetrates into our coverage, right? And, I think we want to bring, a nice, shiny voice and that everybody can be comfortable with, but it can be hard at times, right? And I think, a lot of, I know I'm not the only one, right? Pruitt from last year was like, yeah, this is hard, right? So, and Todd Kenrick, like his connection to D&D made him cry last year. Like, it's a big thing. Like, there is definitely some sadness in covering this. And so, but I really appreciate the Gibson's reminder that people are coming to D&D commentary for their passion, to hear others' passion about Dungeons and Dragons. It's an amazing reminder, and I think we need to consider this about Dungeons and Dragons commentary. That's my opinion. What do you think? Do you think he's right? Do you think my percentages are right? 40% for news, 50% for advice. The vast majority of advice is repeat or bad. Only 10% of it that's on the internet is good. Maybe that's being generous. And then 10% of the people who are coming to D&D commentary are coming specifically for people's passion about Dungeons & Dragons. Love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.